keep saying balance, but I don't think that word means what you think it means. Hello and welcome. Today I want to talk about balance. It's one of those words that people throw around when we're talking about games like D&D, RPGs, things like that, that people use quite frequently, and I believe don't understand more frequently. And let me explain why. So, what brought this about? I saw a post on Twitter. A lot of stuff starts on Twitter that starts these videos or starts my brain thinking about what I want to record. And in this particular post, somebody apparently had just started DMing. They've run 2 sessions. And based on their experience, they're now saying their DM with years of experience doesn't understand how to do balanced combat. The DM had responded, "Did you die?" What this tells me is that the player is probably expecting to face roll through combat. And let's be absolutely honest. If combat were to be 100% balanced every time you played, each side, both the enemy and the players, would have an equal chance of wiping. And in all honesty, most of both sides should be wiped except for 1 or 2 survivors. So balanced combat is really not what you're looking for. And what I think that most players are looking for when they say that the combat isn't balanced is combat that doesn't press them. I have quite a few problems with this. Combat, unless you're talking like an introductory combat in a module where it's supposed to be something that draws the characters in to want to save the town or whatever the purpose of the module or game that you're running is, those combats should be relatively easy without a lot of risk involved. Now, once you actually get into the game, you really should have combat that each time you go in, players feel risk. They feel that they could go down, that they have a chance of going negative, depending on the system, maybe dying. Combat shouldn't be, we go, we kill these guys, we move on. Oh, no one was hurt, I don't need to heal. The reality is, if you're talking about balanced combat, you're really talking about party balance. And this is what I see are most parties are not properly balanced. You don't have a healer. You don't have a tank. Maybe you don't even have someone who can control the battlefield with AoE as a caster. You have a bunch of people that are either munchkining, whatever the flavor of the day is for power builds. Maybe you just have a group of people that think you can get through with nothing but fighters without any casters or clerics. Maybe you've got a group of really crazy people that think, let's all be rogues, we'll be fine. It doesn't work like that. Balance means that your party is balanced. It means that you have someone that, as combat is going, is able to keep the party up. That's a healer. It means that you have someone who has high enough AC that they have a low probability of getting hit in each combat. That's your tank. He's the one that's there to draw combat to him. You have your fighters, you have your rogues, you have all these classes, and you need to have a well-balanced party in order to help balance combat. A GM should not have to retool combat because your party doesn't understand how to build a well-balanced party that has a chance of surviving. If you've built a bad party that in all probability will die because you don't have heals, you don't have AoE to control the battlefield, you don't have a tank, that's not the GM's fault. And they should not modify combat to cater to bad, poorly built parties. In all reality, it should be a lesson for a party that if they die because they failed to balance the party properly and increase their survivability, that they die and have to start over. And hopefully, the party gets the hint and builds a well balanced party who has a higher probability of surviving combat. And let's face it, tabletop RPG games are essentially games that have combat. You're going to be going into battle. You need to plan properly for those battles. You need to have healers, your AoE, all these things. If you don't have a well balanced party, you can't cry that the GM doesn't know how to balance combat because you didn't know how to balance your party. And let's talk about the other thing that people don't seem to understand what balance means. They'll say, my cleric isn't balanced because I don't do enough, as much damage as that guy. It's not your job, unless you're a war cleric or an elemental cleric, as a life cleric, light cleric, or something like that, to deal damage. It's your job to support the party. You know, most people, here's the thing, like if people play bards, most bards understand they're there to support the party, to buff the party, to give all those extra dice that they get to throw, whether it's on saves, combat, attacks, whatever. They are there to help the party throw more dice. They physically don't get to throw those dice, but those are their dice that are getting thrown. A smart cleric knows, I'm not here to deal damage. I'm here to keep the party up. I'm here to turn undead if they show up. I'm here to do all those things that a cleric is supposed to do. I am not a frontline combatant. I am not a true caster that's here to deal lightning bolts and fireballs. I'm here to keep the party going and make it viable. Your tank understands he's probably not going to do a ton of damage, but that high AC makes it so it's really, really hard to hit him. And if he's built right, he can force everybody to have to come in and attack him or impart disadvantage or other problems upon enemies who choose to attack an ally other than him. He is there to absorb the damage while the healer keeps him up. And let's face it, this all kind of goes into being something like a video game, like WoW, things like that. These characters don't expect to do a ton of damage, they expect to do their job. And every player should have a job. Now, I just set up my Tuesday game that I'll be streaming, and the players actually, it's kind of a requirement of mine that the players introduce themselves before we even get to session 0. Talk about what they're planning to do so that they can have a well-balanced party. And at this point, we have a fairly well-balanced party. We have someone who's going to run a druid who plans to be the healer. It's kind of a 2/3 healer, but it should be fine. We have a paladin, which will be a supplemental healer. And he plans to tank and be a protection type. We have a fighter who's going to be a fighter and really do the job that he's supposed to do. A rogue to do their job, as well as a caster. And the caster's still undecided. They may be a sorcerer, maybe a wizard. And it is someone who is first time playing 5e. With that, I always recommend like an evocation wizard, so you don't have to worry about hitting party members in placement. You can just drop bombs and choose to sculpt out the party members, but we'll see what he does. Whatever he does, it's fine with me. If he makes mistakes, that may happen. It's always, the game's going to go the way it goes. But we have a balanced party. We have our battlefield control, our healer, our rogue. A lot of times you've got parties that don't bring rogues in, and then players sit there and expect to be able to pick locks and stuff like that. And I don't let a fighter pick locks because it's not a skill in his wheelhouse. If you don't have a rogue in the party and you need somebody to disable traps, pick locks, things like that, tough. It's not your skill set, and you're probably not going to do it. But you need a well-balanced party so all roles are filled. Now, granted, let's say you have a party of 4, it's a little more difficult, but you can still build an iconic type party that takes care of all of those roles. The truth of the matter is, when I see somebody complaining about a lack of balance, the question that needs to be asked is, what was your party composition? And if you have clerics or healers, are they truly built to heal, or are they trying to be damage dealers? So they're not really that kind of a cleric. As a whole, I would say in almost all cases, when players complain about combat not being balanced, it really does come down to they didn't build a balanced party, they didn't think about composition, and they're expecting the DM to change campaigns to suit poor party composition. And DMs don't accommodate that. If parties are going to play stupidly, let them play stupidly and let them pay the price. But you really do need well balanced parties, not combat balanced to your lack of abilities. But that's it. Most of the times when I hear people talk about balance, they don't mean what balance means. Balance means composition, preparation, being able to survive combat because you've thought out what needs to be done. It doesn't mean adjusting combat because your party did not think out and balance themselves for all situations. So don't blame the DM. It's your fault if you're not building a balanced party. But that's it. This is not going to be a long video. I'm probably going to make another video later this week, possibly talking about skills, because I want to talk about people thinking they can just roll any skill, and you can't, unless the DM's generous, and I'm generally not, and I have reasons for it. But we'll talk about skills, and Tuesday we will be streaming on Twitch with our Tuesday game that we're starting up, our Session 0 for Horde of the Dragon Queen. I will probably also record it and also post it. And if I can talk my other groups on Friday and Sunday, we may stream that as well. So we'll see. Those may be Twitch-only streams, but we'll see how that goes. But that's it for today. Let me know your opinion on balance. Do you think that a GM should balance his combat because your party wasn't smart enough to build a balanced party? Do you realize that party composition is really what balance is? Or do you just think it's all bullshit and you should be able to do whatever you want to do? Let me know. Put your comments down below. Remember to subscribe and like or thumbs down. Doesn't matter, whatever you want to do. And we'll see you next time. Have a great week.